Hello students. Today we'll discuss a reading passage, Science. This is passage 3 from the March 2021 US SAT QAS. So let's begin. This passage is adapted from Clint Perry and Oli Lucola. We taught bees to play football so we could learn about their brains. Most people don't often think about bees' brain power. Bees are generally regarded as tiny, unthinking machines flying from flower to flower, genetically pre-programmed to collect pollen and nectar and make honey. But bees have some impressive cognitive capacities. Bumblebees and honeybees can count, navigate complex environments, learn concepts, use their uncertainty to guide their decisions, and even display emotion-like behavior. Recently, bees have also been trained to solve complex cognitive tasks such as string pulling and cap pushing to gain rewards. But as impressive as these tasks might be, they resemble some of the bees' natural foraging behavior. Our research group wanted to test the behavioral limits of bumblebees by tasking them with something far removed from anything they encounter in nature. So the introduction basically talks about how bees, bumblebees in particular, are more uh, intelligent or are more cognitively gifted than is commonly assumed. And this has been shown by studies done on them, including studies where they have shown a level of cognitive strength that is unexpected of them. Having said that, those studies have expected bees to show behavior that is similar to the behavior that bees commonly display in the wild. So the purpose of this study is to task them with something that is different from anything that they encounter in their natural environment. So we managed to show that bees can play football, sort of. We showed that they can learn to move a small ball to a goal to gain a sugary reward. To do this, we used a plastic model bee on the end of a transparent stick to move a tiny ball across a platform as a real bumblebee watched. Okay, when the ball reached a specified location at the center of the platform, it opened access to rewarding sugar water. After several observations, each real bee we tested picked up how to solve the task and no longer needed demonstrations. While mastering this unnatural task was impressive, we were curious to know how the bees were actually learning to solve it. So we tested three further groups of bees. One group of bees watched another previously trained bee move the ball to the center. A second group of bees observed the ball moving to the center by itself. We actually used a magnet under the platform. And a third group of bees did not receive any demonstration. Okay, so we now see that there were two parts to the experiment. The first part involved a plastic bee that which was used to move a tiny ball across a platform, at the end of which the bee received, as in the plastic bee, it didn't actually receive, but it received sugary water, right? This was something that the real bees observed and they were able to learn this. The second experiment was about how they learned this. So here there were three groups formed. One group um, watched a trained bee move the ball to the center. A second group watched a ball move to the center by itself, which means that there was a magnet working. And a third group did not receive any demonstration. The movement of the ball with the magnet was enough for some of the bees to learn the task significantly better than the bees who did not receive any demonstration. But all 10 bees observing another bee move the ball to the center solved the task much quicker and at a higher success rate than either of the other groups. This suggests the observer bees picked up something important from their fellow bees that helped them learn this unnatural task. The design of this experiment also allowed us to ask a novel question on social learning experiments. When learning from others, will bees simply copy what they see or can they improve upon it? During each of the observation trials, there were three balls positioned at various distances from the center of the platform, but it was always the furthest ball that was moved during the demonstration. But during the test trials, on their own, the observer bees almost always moved the closest balls to the center. This suggests bees weren't simply copying what they saw during the demonstration, but actually improved on the task by using the easiest means. Okay, so So once we have looked at the design of the experiment, the passage introduces some of the results. And the first set of results talks about how the bees that were observing the fellow bee uh, move the ball to the center of the platform. They did the best, right? They were the fastest and they had the highest success rate. Next came the bees that saw the magnet, as in not the magnet. The magnet was invisible to them, but they which saw basically the ball move on its own. So they did better than the third group, which was the bees with no demonstration. And then they also improved. They noticed that the bees improved on the task by choosing the ball which was closest, right? So that it became easier. Our current findings suggest with convincing evidence that a miniature brain is not necessarily simple and can solve an impressively complex task. In fact, we are not yet aware of a cognitive ability that is specific to large brains. What's more, neurobiology and modeling research suggests that a very limited number of neurons, just a few, can accomplish some rather complex cognitive tasks. We have shown that bumblebees can solve a task they've unlikely ever seen in their evolutionary history. No flower has likely ever required bees to move an object into its center to gain access to nectar. The fact that bees learned this unnatural and complex task through observation alone and could improve on what they saw rather than simply copy what they observed shows an unprecedented amount of cognitive flexibility in an animal with such a small brain. And so the last two paragraphs are kind of, discussing the implications of this study, which there are two broad implications. One is that even a small brain can do these complex tasks. It is not necessary to have a brain as large as a human's to perform cognitively complex tasks. And two, that also indicates that the presence of a very limited number of neurons, because obviously a small brain will not have the capacity for a large number of neurons. Even a small number of neurons can accomplish sufficiently complex tasks. Okay, and then we have these two figures. The first one is time to observe bee success in ball moving task. So yeah, so you can see that the ones that watched the trained bee were the fastest. The one with the magnet were slower than them, and the one with no demonstration were the slowest. And this is observer bee success in ball moving task. Okay, so this is about the nearest, middle, and the furthest ball. Okay, so all of them, the successes, all of them had, uh, yeah, okay. So actually, proportion, right? Yeah, okay, great. So actually, the ones which we watched the train, we were always successful. In fact, the proportion is 1, and the highest was 0.7, which is for the nearest ball. So that is interesting. Okay, let's start with question. The main idea of the passage is that bees learn by mimicking demonstrated behavior, have greater cognitive facility than most other insects, can master simple tasks and then demonstrate them for other bees, can learn unfamiliar tasks and then execute them efficiently. Right. So if you look at, I think B and C can be directly eliminated, right? Because I'm not talking about other insects. I'm not doing a comparison. So B is not correct here. And the main idea is not about the demonstration for other bees, right? The main idea is how bees themselves can pick up those cues and do it. Um, right. So I think D is the best answer because the whole purpose is that this was an unfamiliar task. This was not something that they see in nature. And then the fact that they were able to execute it efficiently, right? So that's the main idea. So I'll go with D for this. And yeah, and then the thing is, they are not just mimicking demonstrated behavior, right? They are improving upon it. We also see that they improve upon it. So A is not a good answer. Okay, which choice best describes the overall structure of the passage? An experiment to test an existing hypothesis about bees is presented. That hypothesis is revised based on the experiment results and a new study is proposed. Okay, so I don't think that happens, right? There is no revision of a hypothesis. So I don't think A is a good answer. An experiment that produces unexpected data about bees is introduced. The source of the data is traced to faulty research design and a redesign study is described. That also doesn't seem right. There was nothing faulty about the research design. A generalization about bees is mentioned. Information challenging that generalization is noted, and an experiment that deepens understanding of bees presented. Right, this seems like a good answer because the generalization about bees is that they are not smart, right? And then the author actually presents information to say that no, actually they are smart. They can do a lot of complex tasks, and then an experiment that actually further challenges bees, right? Gives them an experiment that does not mimic anything they do in the natural environment is done. So I'm leaning with C. C is a good answer. D, a criticism about the lack of research on bees is voiced. A new experiment is proposed in response to that criticism and a hypothesis for the new experiment. So I think this is not a good answer because I'm not sure that he's critical particularly, right? He's not saying, he does say that research is done on bees, but we want to try and expand on that research by doing something new. So I'm not, yeah, D is not a good answer. So I'll go with C in this one. Okay, 23. According to the passage, one reason that bees may have mastered tasks such as string pulling is that the bees are exceptionally responsive to sugary rewards. Bees are quick to copy trained bees in performing such tasks. Behaviors stimulate highly developed parts of the bee's brain. Motions are similar to behaviors the bees perform in natural settings. So this is very clearly D, right? We have seen this discussion at the beginning of the passage that we know that bees are smart, but as impressive as those tasks might be, they resemble some of the bees' natural foraging behavior, right? So the string pulling and the cap pushing shows their smartness, but they kind of represent or mimic what they already do. So we want to challenge them further. So D is a very obvious answer that the bees may have mastered string pulling and other such tasks because those motions are similar to what bees perform in natural settings. Okay, 24 and 25 is an evidence pair. It can most reasonably be inferred from the passage that some of the bees participating in the initial training activity were unable to solve the task after a single demonstration, were transfixed by the appearance of the plastic molecule bee, could access the sugar water without moving the ball, and had no prior experience with goal-oriented tasks. Okay, so I'm leaning towards D, but let's look at the evidence for 25. So 19 to 21, 22 to 24, 24 to 26, and 27 to 29. Okay, so let's go back and look at those lines. So we managed to show that bees can play football. Sort of, we showed that they can learn to move a small ball to a goal to gain a sugary reward. Okay, so that's fine. 20, to do this, we used a plastic model bee on the end of a transparent. Okay, so this is just describing the experimental design. When the ball reached a specific location, it opened access, and after several observations, each real bee we tested picked up how to solve the task and no longer needed demonstrations. Okay. I feel that let's just go through the options again. For were unable to solve the task after a single demonstration. Yeah, I think, yeah. So yeah, it's not D then because I think A is a better answer, which is going with option D of 25, because it very clearly says in option D 27 to that after several observations, each real bee we tested picked up how to solve the task. So it took them several observations to kind of pick up that task. So it can reasonably be inferred that they were unable to solve the task after a single demonstration. Okay, so 24 is A and 25 would be D. Yeah. Okay. 26 and 27 is also evidence pair. So before I come to that, you see how 24 and 25, I worked on those together. It's very important to work on evidence pair questions together because I was leaning towards D in 24 earlier, but if I had kind of gotten stuck to that, I would have not been able to get the two questions correct, right? So you need to keep an open mind based on the evidence lines presented and work on the two questions together. Okay, based on the results of the ball moving tasks, the authors would likely agree with which statement based on the results of the ball moving tasks. Okay, so I'm just going to keep the line numbers handy. 40 to 43, 46 to 49, 50 to 53, and 59 to 62. Okay, and let's quickly also scan the options in 26. Bees learn to master new tasks through the process of trial and error. Bees develop complex behaviors by learning them in incremental steps. Bees learn effectively by observing the behaviors of other bees. Bees imitate the actions of other bees and learn by repeating their movements. I'm leaning towards C, right? But let's confirm. So 40 to 43 says the movement of the ball with the magnet was enough for some of the bees to learn the task significantly better than the bees who did not receive any demonstration. 46 to this suggests that observer bees picked up something important from their fellow bees that helped them learn this unnatural task. So I'm leaning towards, let me just highlight this. I think, yeah, I think B is a good answer. Let's just look at 50 to 53. The design also allowed us to ask a novel question. Will be simply copy, okay, and 50 to 53 and 59. Copying, but actually improve on the task. Okay, so the question was, trial and error is not something that's brought up. Okay. Yeah, so I think C is the best answer because I think the concept of trial and error and incremental learning is not brought up. So I'm not going with A or B. Between C and D, I mean, towards the end, lines 59 to 62 are saying that bees don't just repeat the movements but improve upon them. So D is not the right answer if I were to go with evidence line option 4, right? Lines 59 to 62. So that's the other thing, that you'll have to connect the evidence to the correct answer. So option D of question 27 could be correct, but for that, option D of 26 would have to be reworded. So yeah, so C and B, right? I'll go with that. So 26 is C and 27 is B. Okay. As used in line 62, means most nearly means. Okay, so this suggests that bees weren't simply copying what they saw, but actually improved on the task by using the easiest means, by using the easiest method, something like method. So by using the easiest approach, right? That would be the best contextual meaning here, that the approach that they wanted to take was the easiest approach of getting the closest ball rather than going to the farthest ball. So I'll go with B for this. Which statement about the bee's success in the ball moving task is best supported by the data in figure 1? Okay, so data in figure 1 was clearly showing me that the trained bees were the quickest and the ones which were not, the bees observing the trained bees were the quickest. And the ones which had not received any demonstration were the slowest, right? Yeah, so let's look at observer bees benefited from seeing a demonstration before attempting to solve the same task. Okay, bees that received no demonstration required assistance when attempting to solve the task on their own. So I think A and B are not correct because they don't represent what the passage is, rather what the graph is saying, because The graph is taking a very data-led approach to how these three groups worked. While this is getting into details that are not represented in the graph, so I don't like A and B. Let's see. Observer B's that saw the demonstration of the magnet boole valve solved the task as quickly as did B's that received. No, they were faster, so C is not correct. Bees that saw the demonstration with the trained bees were the only bees that succeeded at the ball. Okay, so D doesn't seem right either. Solved. Okay, so I'll have to look at it again. Observer bees benefited. Oh, right. Yeah, A is the right answer because they did benefit, right, from a demonstration of the ball moving task. Yeah, obviously because they were faster. Yeah. Sorry. So I think, yeah, I think I was confused there. So A is correct. Whether it was watching a trained bee or watching the magnet ball, they did benefit because they were doing it faster. Okay, so A is correct. Right, let's go to 30th. According to figure 2, which combination of demonstration type and the ball's distance yielded the least success in solving the task? Okay, so least success would be the tiniest proportion of success. So that's like the black strip for the ones which had no demonstration. So farthest and no demonstration, right? So no demonstration and farthest ball. This is the least success. So 30th is D. And as used in line 69, limited most nearly means. Okay, 69. Neurobiology and modeling research suggests that a very limited number of neurons, very small number of neurons, right? So small is a good word. Yeah, very small number of neurons. So B. Okay, let's now grade this. Yeah, we are going from 21 to 31. Okay, so that is here. DC, yeah, okay. And then let's also look at 30. Wait, I don't want to see the answers for the others. Yeah, okay. DADC, DADC, BBAD, BBADB. Yeah, okay. So we got all correct for this. All right, so hope you found this exercise helpful. If you did, please subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the like button. Leave a comment if you found it useful. Also share it with your friends and help the channel grow, please. I'll come back with another video and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.